The Valari Dominion had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Their empire stretched across 900 star systems. Their warships numbered in the millions. Their soldiers had conquered countless worlds, and no species had ever stood against them for long. When their scouts first discovered the small blue planet called Earth, the Valari High Council barely paid attention. The planet's inhabitants had only recently learned to split the atom. They had sent a few primitive machines to their moon. They were broadcasting simple radio signals into space like children crying out in the dark. Ambassador Zethron saw something different. He saw opportunity. Earth had rich deposits of minerals that the Dominion needed. Its population of 8 billion could serve as workers in Valari mines and factories. Best of all, humans knew nothing about the greater galaxy. They had no allies, no advanced weapons, no idea what was coming for them. The High Council approved his request with little debate. 3 cruisers would be more than enough to bring Earth under Valari control. It would take a few days at most. On a cold November morning, the skies above Earth changed forever. Daniel Price was drinking his second cup of coffee when the alarm started screaming. He worked as a commander at the United States Space Command, buried deep in a mountain bunker in Colorado. His job was to track satellites and watch for threats from above. In 20 years of service, the biggest emergency he had faced was a piece of space debris threatening the International Space Station. Today was different. "Sir, we have 3 unidentified objects entering the atmosphere," said Lieutenant Kevin Moore. His young face had gone pale. "They're huge. Each one is at least 2 miles long." Daniel set down his coffee and walked to the main screen. 3 red dots were descending over North America, Europe, and Asia. They were moving faster than anything humans had ever built. "Get me Washington," Daniel said. Before Kevin could respond, the first blast hit. The Pentagon vanished in a column of white light. The beam came from the ship hovering over the Atlantic Ocean, and it cut through the building like a hot knife through paper. One moment, thousands of people were working at their desks. The next moment, there was nothing but a smoking crater. Daniel's hands gripped the edge of the console. His wife, Amy, worked at the Pentagon. She had kissed him goodbye 3 days ago when he left for his rotation at the bunker. "Sir," Kevin said, his voice breaking. "Sir, they're hitting targets everywhere." The screens filled with destruction. Military bases across the world were being erased one by one. Aircraft carriers exploded in their ports. Missile silos collapsed before they could launch. Fighter jets fell from the sky like burning leaves. The attack lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 70% of Earth's military capability had been destroyed. 12 million people were dead. Cities were burning on every continent. And then the message came. The alien voice spoke in perfect English, broadcast on every frequency and every screen on the planet. It was cold and emotionless. "People of Earth, you have been chosen to serve the Valari Dominion. Your planet and its resources now belong to us. You will surrender unconditionally within 48 hours. Your leaders will present themselves to our landing forces. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your largest population centers. You have no hope of victory. Submission is your only path to survival." The message repeated in every language on Earth. In the bunker, Daniel stood motionless. Around him, officers were crying, shouting, praying. Some had already learned that their families were among the dead. Others were trying desperately to reach loved ones through communication systems that no longer worked. Kevin approached him carefully. "Commander Price, what do we do?" Daniel did not answer immediately. He was thinking about Amy, about the life they had planned together, about the children they had talked about having someday. All of that was gone now, erased in a flash of alien light. But something else was growing inside him, something hot and sharp and utterly without fear. "Get me General Patterson," he said quietly, "and every surviving military commander on this planet. Tell them we need to talk." Sir, they want us to surrender. Maybe if we just... Daniel turned to face the young lieutenant. His eyes were dry and hard. My wife was in that building, Kevin. So were thousands of other husbands and wives and mothers and fathers. These things came to our home without warning. They killed our people without mercy. They expect us to kneel. He turned back to the screen showing the burning world. They have no idea what they've done. In orbit above Earth, Ambassador Zethran watched the planet's communications with satisfaction. He saw panic. He saw despair. He saw exactly what he expected from a primitive species facing superior power. The humans would surrender. They always did. Every species surrendered when faced with the might of the Dominion. Some took days. Some took weeks. But in the end, they all broke. He retired to his quarters to rest, confident that Earth would be under Valari control before the week was over. He could not hear the conversations happening in bunkers and basements across the planet. He could not see the surviving generals and admirals connecting through backup systems that the Valari did not know existed. He could not feel the cold fury building in the hearts of 8 billion people. The Valari had studied human technology. They had analyzed human military strength. They had calculated exactly how much force would be needed to break human resistance. But they had not studied human history. They had not read about the winters at Valley Forge, where starving soldiers refused to quit. They had not learned about Stalingrad, where a city fought to the last building. They had not understood what humans were capable of when everything they loved was threatened. They had made the worst mistake any invader could make. They had assumed that superior firepower meant guaranteed victory. In the mountains of Colorado, Daniel Price began making calls. In a submarine beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Lisa Chen gathered her surviving captains. In the ruins of European cities, Colonel Ben Torres organized the soldiers who had escaped the first strike. They had 48 hours before the aliens expected an answer. They intended to give one. But it would not be the answer the Valari were expecting. The humans were not preparing to surrender. They were preparing to fight. And deep in their hearts, they were making a promise to every person who had died that terrible morning. This was not over. This was just beginning. The aliens expected screaming. They expected begging. They expected humans to flood their communication channels with pleas for mercy and offers of surrender. Instead, they got silence. For 2 days, Earth went dark. Radio stations stopped broadcasting. Television channels showed nothing but static. The internet, what remained of it, carried no messages of surrender. The planet that had been so loud and busy just 48 hours ago now seemed as quiet as a grave. In the command cruiser high above the Pacific Ocean, Ambassador Zethran began to feel uneasy. His officers reported no significant human activity, no military movements, no diplomatic communications, nothing. Perhaps they are too damaged to respond, suggested Commander Kethavor, his second-in-command. We destroyed most of their infrastructure. Perhaps, Zethran replied. But something about the silence bothered him. Conquered species did not go quiet. They cried. They begged. They fought uselessly until they exhausted themselves. Silence was not normal. Should we send ground forces to investigate? Kethavor asked. Zethran considered the question. His cruisers had enough firepower to destroy every city on the planet. His ground troops numbered 50,000, each one equipped with weapons and armor far beyond anything humans possessed. There was no logical reason to feel concerned. Wait until the deadline passes, he decided. If they do not surrender, we will begin the occupation as planned. He returned to his quarters, telling himself that everything was proceeding normally. But sleep did not come easily that night. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the silence on Earth's surface hid furious activity. Commander Daniel Price had not slept in 2 days. He stood at the center of a room filled with the most important people left alive on the planet. Military leaders from 12 countries, scientists from the world's top research facilities, engineers who had built the machines that humans once thought were the height of technology. "They think we're broken," Daniel said. His voice was rough from exhaustion, but his eyes were sharp and clear. "They're sitting up there in their ships, waiting for us to give up. They have no idea what we're doing down here." Admiral Lisa Chen stepped forward. She was a small woman with gray hair and a face that showed no emotion. Before the attack, she had commanded the Pacific Fleet. Now she commanded whatever was left of it. "We've gathered every surviving naval vessel in hidden locations around the world," she reported. "Submarines, destroyers, aircraft carriers that escaped the initial strike. It's not much, but it's something." Colonel Ben Torres of the European Defense Initiative spoke next. He had lost his entire family in the attack on Brussels. His voice was steady, but everyone in the room could see the grief behind his eyes. "Ground forces are organizing in underground bunkers across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. We're using old communication systems, things the aliens wouldn't think to monitor. Shortwave radio, physical messengers, signals hidden in civilian broadcasts." Daniel nodded. "What about our weapons? Can anything we have hurt those ships?" The room went quiet. This was the question that mattered most. The alien cruisers had shields that stopped missiles and bullets alike. Human weapons had bounced off them like toys. Dr. Megan Walsh stepped forward. She was young for her position, barely 35, but she was the smartest physicist left alive on Earth. Her team had been working without rest since the attack began. "I have good news and bad news," she said. "The bad news is that our conventional weapons are useless against their shields. We could fire every nuclear missile we have left and it wouldn't scratch them." The room grew even quieter. "The good news," Dr. Walsh continued, "is that we've captured some of their technology. Small pieces from the attack, fragments of weapons, parts from a drone that crashed in Montana. We've been studying them." She pulled up images on the main screen. They showed alien components, strange shapes made of metals that did not exist on Earth. Their shields work by generating a field of energy that deflects incoming attacks. But every shield has a frequency, a pattern. If we can match that frequency, we can pass through it. "Can you build something that does that?" Daniel asked. "We're working on it, but that's not the most important discovery." Dr. Walsh changed the image to show a diagram of an alien ship. "Their reactors are powerful, but they're also unstable. If we can get a device inside their ships near the reactor core, we can cause a chain reaction that will tear the ship apart from the inside." Admiral Chen leaned forward. "You're saying we need to get inside their ships?" "Yes. And I think I know how." Dr. Walsh brought up another image, showing a small alien landing craft. "This crashed in a forest in Oregon. The pilot is dead, but the ship is mostly intact. My team believes we can repair it." For the first time in 2 days, Daniel felt something like hope. It was small and fragile, but it was there. "How long do we have until the deadline?" he asked. 18 hours, Kevin Moore replied. Daniel looked around the room. These were the people who would decide humanity's fate: soldiers and scientists, leaders and workers. Men and women who had lost everything but refused to give up. "Here's what we're going to do," he said. "Dr. Walsh, you focus on that captured ship. Get it flying. Admiral Chen, prepare our naval forces for coordinated strikes. Colonel Torres, I want every resistance cell on the planet ready to move the moment we give the signal." "What's the plan?" Admiral Chen asked. Daniel walked to the main screen and pointed at the alien flagship, the largest of the 3 cruisers. "We're going to give them their answer, but we're not going to surrender. We're going to fly that captured ship right into their command vessel and blow it up from the inside." The room was silent. "That's a suicide mission," Colonel Torres said quietly. "I know," Daniel replied, "and I'm going to lead it myself." No one argued. They all understood. Someone had to do it. Someone had to show the aliens that humans would not go quietly into the night. Over the next 18 hours, the plan came together. Dr. Walsh and her team worked around the clock to repair the captured ship. Engineers loaded it with explosives designed to trigger reactor cores. Pilots practiced maneuvers in simulators. And across the planet, ordinary people prepared for war. Factory workers made weapons in hidden workshops. Computer programmers developed viruses to disrupt alien communications. Doctors set up underground hospitals. Teachers became soldiers. Children helped carry supplies through tunnels that adults could not fit through. The aliens watched from above and saw nothing. Their sensors detected no military activity. Their analysts predicted total surrender. They had no idea that beneath their feet, 8 billion people were getting ready to fight. The deadline passed at midnight. The alien ships began moving toward Earth's major cities, ready to begin the occupation. They expected to find a broken species waiting to serve them. They were about to learn the truth about humanity. The Valari ground troops landed at dawn. Dropships fell from the sky like metal rain, touching down in the ruins of New York, London, Tokyo, and 100 other cities. 50,000 alien soldiers marched out in perfect formation, their weapons ready, their armor gleaming in the morning light. They expected to find survivors huddled in the rubble, waiting to be collected. They expected submission. They expected fear. What they found was something else entirely. In New York, the first column of Valari soldiers entered the subway system. Their commanders had identified the tunnels as hiding places for human survivors. They were right about that. They were wrong about everything else. Chris Palmer was 26 years old. Before the invasion, he had been an electrical engineer, designing power systems for skyscrapers. Now he crouched in the darkness of a subway tunnel, his hand on a switch connected to 200 pounds of explosives. He watched through a crack in the wall as the alien soldiers marched past. They were tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like gray stone. Their eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. They moved with the confidence of creatures who had never known defeat. Chris waited until the first 50 were inside the tunnel. Then he pressed the switch. The explosion brought down the ceiling on top of them. Rocks and concrete crushed alien soldiers who had never expected to face danger on this primitive world. Chris was already moving, leading a group of 30 civilians through side tunnels that only New Yorkers knew existed. Behind them, the surviving aliens regrouped and gave chase. They ran straight into the second trap, and the third, and the fourth. The subway tunnels of New York became a maze of death for the Valari. Every corner hid an ambush. Every shadow concealed a human with a weapon. The aliens had superior technology, but the humans knew every inch of their city, and they had nothing left to lose. Similar scenes played out across the planet. In London, survivors used the ancient sewer systems to move unseen beneath the streets. They struck alien patrols and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. In Tokyo, engineers had rigged entire buildings to collapse at the push of a button, burying alien squads under tons of rubble. In Sao Paulo, fighters emerged from the favelas in waves, overwhelming alien positions with sheer numbers and desperate courage. The Valari commanders sent reports back to Ambassador Zethran, resistance in all sectors, casualties mounting. The humans were not surrendering. They were fighting with a ferocity that the Valari had never encountered. Zethran read the reports with growing disbelief. This was not possible. Primitive species did not fight like this. They broke. They begged. They died quietly. These humans did none of those things. High above the chaos, Daniel Price was preparing for his final mission. The captured alien ship sat in an underground hangar, repaired and loaded with explosives. Dr. Baksh, Megan Walsh, had worked miracles to get it flying. The device in its cargo hold was designed to trigger a cascade failure in the Valari flagship's reactor. If they could get close enough to deliver it, the most powerful ship in the alien fleet would tear itself apart. Daniel stood before his volunteer crew. 12 people had stepped forward for what everyone knew was a one-way trip. Pilots, soldiers, engineers, men and women who had watched their world burn and decided they would rather die fighting than live on their knees. Among them was Lieutenant Kate Sullivan, a Navy pilot who had lost her entire squadron in the first attack. She would fly the ship. "You all know what we're doing," Daniel said. "The alien flagship is the key to their operation. Their commander is on board, their communications center, their tactical systems. If we destroy it, the other ships will be blind and leaderless." "And we die," said Sergeant Marcus Webb, a Marine who had survived the destruction of his base by hiding under the bodies of his friends. "Yes," Daniel said simply. "We die. But maybe, if we're lucky, our deaths will mean something. Maybe we can give Earth a chance." No one backed out. No one asked to stay behind. At midnight, the ship launched. Kate Sullivan flew low over the Pacific Ocean, using the curve of the Earth to hide from alien sensors. The captured ship's identification codes were still active. To the Volari, it would look like one of their own vessels returning from a patrol. "Entering their sensor range now," Kate reported. Her voice was calm, almost peaceful. She had made her peace with death days ago. The alien flagship hung in orbit like a metal moon. 2 miles of weapons and armor and technology far beyond anything humans had ever built. Daniel watched it grow larger through the cockpit window. "No response yet," said Dr. Walsh, who had insisted on joining the mission despite everyone's objections. She was monitoring the ship's systems, watching for any sign that the Volari had detected the deception. They passed the outer perimeter, then the middle ring of defense ships. Still no alarm. "Approaching the hangar bay," Kate said. 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 10. The hangar doors opened automatically, recognizing their ship's codes. Kate guided them inside, touching down gently on the alien deck. "We're in," she whispered. They moved fast. The hangar was nearly empty, most of the alien crew occupied with the ground invasion below. Daniel led the way, his weapon raised, his heart pounding in his chest. They encountered the first guards at the first intersection. The fight was short and brutal. 3 of Daniel's team fell, but the guards fell too. They kept moving. More guards, more fighting. The corridors of the alien ship were dark and strange, filled with sounds and smells that humans had never experienced before. But Daniel's team pressed forward, leaving bodies behind them. By the time they reached the reactor room, only 3 of them remained: Daniel, Kate, and Dr. Walsh. The reactor was beautiful in a terrible way. A sphere of blue light, humming with more power than all the nuclear plants on Earth combined. Dr. Walsh planted the device at its base, her hands steady despite the chaos around them. "It's set," she said. 60 seconds. Kate smiled. "Enough time for a cigarette. Too bad I don't smoke." Daniel looked at the 2 women who would die beside him. Strangers 2 weeks ago, now the closest thing he had to family. "Thank you," he said. "Both of you." The reactor began to glow brighter. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Somewhere, Volari officers were realizing what was happening, but it was too late. Far too late. The explosion turned night into day. From Earth's surface, survivors looked up and saw the alien flagship die. A ball of fire bloomed in the sky, brighter than the sun, visible from every continent. The 2 remaining cruisers, suddenly alone and leaderless, broke formation. And then, for the first time in 12,000 years, Volari warships retreated from a battlefield. They fled from Earth. They fled from humanity. In bunkers and basements, in tunnels and ruins, humans watched them go. And for the first time since the invasion began, they allowed themselves to hope. They had paid a terrible price, but they had proven something that the galaxy would never forget. Humanity could not be conquered. News travels fast in space. Within hours of the battle, every intelligent species in the galaxy knew what had happened at Earth. The information spread through trading networks and diplomatic channels, through smugglers and spies, through whispered conversations in the dark corners of 1,000 worlds. The Valari Dominion, rulers of 900 systems, masters of countless species, had been beaten. Their flagship was dust floating in orbit around a small blue planet. Their invasion force had been destroyed by creatures who had discovered fire only a few thousand years ago. It was impossible. Everyone said so, and yet it had happened. In the throne room of the Valari home world, High Lord Zethkal received the news in cold silence. Ambassador Zethron, who had promised an easy conquest, knelt before him with his head bowed in shame. "You told me they were primitives," the High Lord said. His voice was soft, which meant he was very angry. "You told me 3 cruisers would be sufficient. My lord, no one could have predicted—" Silence. The High Lord rose from his throne. "We have ruled the stars for 12,000 years. In all that time, no species has defeated our forces in battle. Now, because of your failure, every slave world in our empire is hearing rumors. They are beginning to wonder if we can be beaten." He walked to the great window that overlooked the capital city. Billions of Valari went about their lives below, secure in the knowledge that their empire was eternal. But empires only lasted as long as their subjects believed in them. "We will send a proper fleet," the High Lord decided. 50 warships, 500,000 soldiers. We will turn that planet into ash and kill every human who lives there, and we will broadcast their destruction to every corner of the galaxy. "It will be done, my lord," Zethron whispered. On Earth, the survivors were counting their dead. 15 million people had died in the invasion and the fighting that followed. Cities lay in ruins. Infrastructure was destroyed. The global economy had collapsed. It would take decades to rebuild what had been lost in a single week, but they had won, against impossible odds, against technology far beyond their own. They had won. Admiral Lisa Chen stood before the United Nations General Assembly in New York. The Great Hall was half empty, its walls scarred by fire, its windows shattered. Many nations no longer had leaders to send. But those who remained had gathered to decide humanity's future. "We drove them away," Lisa said. "But they will return. The Valari Dominion controls 900 star systems. They have resources we cannot imagine. When they come back, they will bring enough ships to darken our skies." The assembled leaders shifted uneasily. They had barely survived one attack. The thought of another, larger invasion was almost too much to bear. "We need to prepare," Lisa continued. "Dr. Walsh and her team have been studying the alien technology we captured, the weapons, the shield systems, the engines that let them cross the stars. She believes we can understand it. She believes we can build our own." Dr. Megan Walsh stepped forward. She had not slept more than a few hours since the battle. Dark circles surrounded her eyes, but her voice was strong. "The Valari technology is advanced, but it follows the same laws of physics as our own. Give me 5 years and the resources I need. I can build ships that match theirs, maybe even surpass them." 5 years, said the Russian delegate. "Do we have 5 years?" No one could answer that question. 3 months later, the answer arrived from the stars. The signal came at night, picked up by radio telescopes around the world. It was not from the Valari. The language was different. The tone was different. When Dr. Walsh's team translated it, they could hardly believe what it said. The message came from a group calling themselves the Free Worlds Alliance. They were species who had lived under Valari control for thousands of years. Some had been conquered, others had been born into slavery. All of them had dreamed of freedom, but never believed it was possible. Until Earth. "We saw what you did," the message said. "We saw you destroy their ships. We saw you fight back. For the first time in our history, we believe that the Dominion can be defeated. We want to learn. We want to fight. We want to be free." Admiral Chen read the message to the General Assembly. The room was silent. "They're asking us for help," she said. "Species we've never met, worlds we've never seen. They're asking us to teach them how to fight." The debate lasted for hours. Some argued that humanity should focus on its own defense. They had barely survived one invasion. Taking on the responsibility of leading a galactic rebellion seemed insane. Others saw opportunity. If humanity stood alone, the Valari would eventually overwhelm them through sheer numbers. But if they could rally other species, if they could build a coalition of free worlds, they might actually have a chance. In the end, Admiral Chen made the decision herself. "We're going to help them," she announced. "Not because it's easy, not because we're sure we can win, but because it's right. The Valari attacked our world without warning. They killed our people. They expected us to bow down. If there are others out there who have suffered under their rule, then we have a duty to stand with them." The message went out that night, broadcast into the stars on every frequency Dr. Walsh could manage. "To the Free Worlds Alliance, this is Earth. We accept your offer of friendship. Send your ships. Send your soldiers. Send anyone who wants to learn how to fight for their freedom. We will teach you everything we know." 6 months later, the first alien ships arrived at Earth. They were old and battered, crewed by beings who looked nothing like humans, but shared the same dream of liberty. They had traveled across half the galaxy, risking everything, hoping that the stories about Earth were true. Admiral Chen met them personally, standing on the runway of a rebuilt military base, as strange creatures stepped off strange ships. They were nervous, afraid, uncertain if they could trust these humans who had done what no other species had managed. She walked up to the first alien, a tall creature with blue skin and 3 eyes. It trembled as she approached. "Welcome to Earth," Lisa said. "You're safe here, and when you leave, you'll know how to fight for your own home." The alien spoke through a translator device. "They say you defeated the Valari with primitive weapons and desperate courage. They say you never gave up." Lisa smiled. It was the first real smile she had allowed herself since the invasion. "That's exactly right, and we're going to teach you to do the same." Behind her, human soldiers stood ready to begin training the first recruits of an alliance that would change the galaxy forever. The Valari had made a mistake when they attacked Earth. They had awakened something they did not understand. And now that something was spreading across the stars, lighting fires of rebellion on 100 worlds. The war for the galaxy had begun. 1 year after the attack on Earth, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. The Council was the oldest institution in known space. For 12,000 years, representatives from 400 species had gathered in the Great Chamber on the neutral world of Thesson Prime. They debated treaties and trade agreements. They resolved disputes between star systems. They maintained order across 3,000 worlds. But everyone knew the truth. The Council existed because the Valari allowed it to exist. Every vote, every decision, every resolution served the interests of the Dominion. The other species were not partners. They were subjects who had been given the illusion of participation. High Counselor Veltoth of the Valari Dominion stood at the central podium. Looking out at the assembled representatives, his 4 eyes swept across the chamber, noting the fear in some faces and the carefully hidden hope in others. He had called this session for one reason: to demand the Council's support in crushing the human rebellion before it spread any further. "Distinguished representatives," he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. "We face a threat to galactic order. The species known as humans has not only resisted rightful Dominion authority, but has actively encouraged rebellion among our tributary worlds. In the past year, 6 systems have declared independence. Terrorist attacks have occurred in 12 others. He paused, letting his words sink in. This cannot be tolerated. The Council must authorize immediate military action against Earth. The humans must be made an example. Their world must be destroyed so completely that no other species will ever again dream of defying the Dominion. The chamber was silent. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat motionless, afraid to speak, afraid even to meet each other's eyes. This was how the Council had always operated. The Velari demanded, and everyone else obeyed. Then the doors at the far end of the chamber opened. Admiral Lisa Chen walked into the room with her head held high. Behind her came Colonel Ben Torres and a delegation of human officers in dress uniforms. And behind them came something the Council had never seen before. Representatives from the Free Worlds Alliance, species who had spent millennia in chains and were now walking as free beings. Veltoth's mandibles clicked in anger. You were not invited to this council. You have no right to be here. Lisa continued walking until she reached the speaker's platform. She was shorter than almost everyone in the room, a small human woman standing before creatures who had ruled the stars since before her species had discovered fire. She was not afraid. 1 year ago, she said, her voice clear and steady, your people attacked our world without warning. You killed 15 million of our people in a single day. Children, families, people who had never done anything to harm you. The chamber was utterly silent. You expected us to surrender. You expected us to kneel. For 12,000 years, every species you've encountered has done exactly that. You thought we would be no different. She took a step forward, and Veltoth actually stepped back. Something about the look in her eyes made him uncertain in a way he had never felt before. You attacked Earth, Lisa said. Do you understand what that means? You attacked a species that has spent its entire existence fighting for survival. We fought ice ages and plagues. We fought each other. We clawed our way from caves to cities to the stars themselves, and every step of the way, someone told us it was impossible. She turned to address the full council. 400 species watched her, barely breathing. The Velari believed that superior technology means guaranteed victory. They were wrong. Technology can be learned. Technology can be stolen. Technology can be overcome by people who refuse to give up. From the Alliance delegation, a tall being with blue skin stepped forward. His name was Vorthon, and his species had served the Velari for 3,000 years. His voice was rough with emotion. Humans came to our world 6 months ago. They taught us things we had forgotten. They taught us that we did not have to accept our chains. They taught us how to fight. Another alien stepped forward, then another. Representatives from species that had been silent in the council chamber for generations suddenly found their voices. My people were slaves, said a creature with scales and golden eyes. Humans showed us that we could be warriors. The Dominion took our homeworld, said another. Humans helped us take it back. Veltoth looked around the chamber with growing horror. The order he had known his entire life was crumbling before his eyes. Species that had bowed to the Velari for millennia were standing up, standing together. Standing with the humans. This is treason, he snarled. The Dominion will crush all of you. We have 1,000 warships. We have... You have less than you think, Lisa interrupted calmly. In the past 6 months, your shipyards at Kellis 4 have been destroyed. Your fuel depot at the Rim has been captured. 12 of your warship commanders have defected to the Alliance with their crews. Veltoth stared at her. How do you know this? Because we planned it. Lisa smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You spent so long conquering others that you forgot how to defend yourselves. You never imagined that someone might study your tactics and turn them against you. She turned back to the council. We did not come here to threaten or to boast. We came to offer a choice. For 12,000 years, This council has served the Dominion. Today, that can end. Join the Free Worlds Alliance. Stand with us. Together we can build a galaxy where no species has to bow to another. And if we refuse, asked a representative from a world still loyal to the Valari. Then you refuse, Lisa said simply. We won't force anyone to join us. That's the difference between us and them. But know this, the Dominion's time is ending. The only question is whether it ends quickly or slowly, whether it ends with more death or with peace. She looked directly at Veltoth. You attacked Earth. You thought you could break us in a few days. Instead, you created something you cannot stop. A movement, an idea, the knowledge that the Valari can be beaten. The High Counselor's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. For the first time in his long life, he had no response. The galaxy is changing, Lisa continued. You can try to stop it. You can send your fleets and your armies, but for every world you burn, 10 more will rise up. For every rebel you kill, 100 more will take their place. Because now they know the truth. She turned to leave, her delegation following behind her. At the door, she paused and looked back one last time. You attacked Earth, she said softly, but her words carried through the silent chamber. And now you have to live with the consequences. The council could only stare, paralyzed, as the humans walked out. Behind them, representatives began to whisper, then to talk, then to argue openly, right there in the chamber, as Veltoth watched his empire begin to fall apart. On the transport back to Earth, Colonel Torres sat beside Lisa. Do you think it will work? He asked. Do you think we can really beat them? Lisa looked out the window at the stars sliding past. Somewhere out there, human officers were training alien recruits. Human engineers were building new ships. Human diplomats were negotiating alliances with species whose names humans could barely pronounce. Daniel believed we could, she said. He died believing it. So did Kate and Dr. Walsh and everyone else who gave their lives to get us this far. She straightened in her seat. We're going to make sure they were right. The ship jumped to light speed, carrying humanity's hope across the stars. Behind them, the old order was dying. Ahead of them, a new galaxy was waiting to be born. And at the heart of it all were the people of a small blue planet who had refused to surrender. The people of Earth.